Have you ever wondered why breathing is slowly starting to feel harder and why the effects of climate change never seem to hit everyone the same way?
Or how the small lifestyle choices we make every day quietly shape the environment around us?
Well then, you're in the right place. This is Earthwise,
Or otherwise.
a weekly climate news roundup brought to you by Climate Action Life in collaboration with the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication.
Every week, we bring you climate stories from around the world, along with people's voices, cultural reflections, and small actions that we can all take in our everyday lives.
On this journey, I'm Ritvik.
And I'm Gayatri. Two perspectives, but one shared concern: the planet we call our home.
This is Earthwise or otherwise.
Because the real question isn't just what being Earthwise looks like.
It is also what the cost of choosing otherwise might just be. So now let's begin with our weekly National Climate Check-in, where we break down what's happening across India.
From policy shifts to ground level impact, here's everything you need to know about the country's changing climate story.
Well, let me ask you something, Gayatri. Have you ever heard the term wet bulb temperature? This is not just about the temperature readings, but about how hot it feels. And more importantly, it is about how well your body can cool itself. When humidity is high, sweat does not evaporate easily. So your body cannot cool down. That is when heat stops being just uncomfortable and starts becoming dangerous. And this is not theoretical anymore. Across India this past month, conditions have been edging closer to that zone. Scientists say that this is not random. It is a pattern that we need to get used to, especially in places like Tamil Nadu. The India Meteorological Department says that the state is heading into a hotter than normal May. Think like 39 to 40 degrees Celsius in cities like Chennai. With the city's usual humidity, this pushes your body into survival mode. Along with this heat, Tamil Nadu is also expecting above normal rainfall. Thunderstorms, sudden heavy showers and all of that. So one minute the heat is pushing your body to its limit, and the next minute the skies open up. The weather is being dramatic because climate variability is intensifying. Hotter days, heavier bursts of rain, and when the heat and humidity combine, especially before or after rainfall, conditions can feel even more intense. That is where wet bulb temperature becomes a real risk and not just a concept. This affects everything. Outdoor work becomes harder, farming decisions get riskier, infrastructure struggles to keep up. Even stepping out becomes a calculation. So the question is not just if it is hot or not. The question is, how safe is it to be out in this heat? Because if this pattern continues, we are not dealing with just hot summers. We are dealing with conditions that challenge how we live and we work. The call to action for this is, we want you to stay hydrated. Avoid going out during peak heat hours, especially when it's humid. Pay attention to how your body feels and not just the temperature reading. Carry essentials for both sun and rain because both can hit at the same day. Use electricity and water very carefully. And keep an eye on people who are more vulnerable to heat stress. Adapting individually helps, but looking out for each other is what really builds resilience.
Ritvik, when we talk about climate and pollution, we usually picture things that we can see. Smoggy skies, landfills, heat waves and whatnot. But what about the damage we don't easily see? What about the damage that's not visible to human eyes? What about what's happening along India's own coastlines? India has a coastline of over 7,500 kilometers supporting millions of people, and especially fishing communities whose lives are directly tied to the health of the ocean. But right now, these coastal ecosystems are under serious stress. Marine pollution along India's coasts is rising, and a major contributor is plastic waste. Ritvik, we humans use a significant portion of the plastic waste. Bags, wrappers, packaging, eventually it finds way into rivers and from there into the sea. And once it's there, it doesn't just float away. It breaks down into microplastics. And these microplastics are consumed by marine life. Fish, shellfish, and even the smallest organisms like plankton. And here's why it becomes personal, Ritvik. Because once it enters the food chain, it eventually makes its way back to us. But plastic isn't the only concern. Untreated sewage and industrial discharge along coastal cities also plays an important role. These pollutants reduce water quality and create low oxygen zones, often called the dead zones, where marine life simply cannot survive. And this directly affects livelihoods. Fishermen report declining fish catches, changing fish patterns, and deteriorating water conditions. So, this isn't just about environmental damage, it's about economic survival for coastal communities. And what makes this even more concerning is how gradual and invisible it feels. There is no single moment of crisis, but a continuous decline. Because otherwise, we risk taking our own coastlines into dumping grounds and losing ecosystems that millions of Indians depend on. Well, the call to action to this is start recognizing that your daily habits don't stay local, they travel. Reduce plastic use, especially single-used items, because much of it eventually ends up in water systems. Dispose of waste responsibly and avoid littering even in places far from the coast, because rivers can carry impact forward. Support coastal communities, cleanup drives, and organizations working to protect marine ecosystems in India. Be mindful of chemical usage at home as it can enter water systems and affect marine life. Protecting India's oceans doesn't just begin at the shoreline. It begins with everyday awareness and consistent actions.
Alright, this one's genuinely sounding like something out of a science fiction film. But it is not fiction, it is real, and it is happening right now. Imagine using space technology not to search for water on distant planets, but to locate and understand water right here on Earth. Well, the next report is from our very own website, Climate Action Live. A scientist associated with Chandrayaan-2 is now adapting similar technology to map groundwater resources. Using satellites and advanced remote sensing, scientists can observe what is happening beneath the Earth's surface without even digging into it. They can track underground water levels, monitor changes over time, and even detect hidden reserves that would otherwise remain unknown. This is especially important because groundwater is invisible. Unlike rivers or lakes, we don't see it, which makes it easy to overuse and ignore until it's too late. With this technology, we can now measure how much water is being extracted and how much it is being replenished through rainfall and natural processes. It also helps identify leaks, shortages, and regions where water tables are dropping dangerously fast. For governments and planners, this kind of information is incredibly valuable. It allows them to move from reacting to water crises to actually preventing them. They can regulate usage, plan recharge systems, and make smarter decisions about distribution. It is not just about finding water, it is about managing it responsibly. There is something undeniably fascinating about solving Earth's problems with tools designed for space exploration. It shows how innovation can come full circle, helping us understand our own planet better. But here's the catch. Technology can guide us, inform us, and even warn us, but it cannot fix careless usage. If we continue to waste water, ignore leaks, and treat it like an unlimited resource, then even the most advanced systems won't be able to save us. The call to action for this is fix leaks as soon as you notice them. Stop treating water like it is unlimited. Use water wherever possible and stay informed about local water issues. Technology can help us find water, but only we can make it last. Right, Gayatri?
Movies, music, fashion, social media trends, we consume all of it every day. But have you ever paused to think about the environmental footprint behind these choices?
Well, let's bring this conversation down to the ground with our Vox Pop segment.
To explore these questions further, our climate crew has been out and about speaking directly to people on campus.
Pratha, Nayak and Samagra Thakur have been engaging with students, young audiences and everyday listeners.
trying to understand how pop culture choices quietly shape the way we think about climate.
So, over to you both.
Today, we asked students around campus, is climate anxiety driving action towards preventing climate change, or is it leading to higher rates of burnout among Gen Z?
Honestly, I feel like it's more burnout than action. Like, yeah, as Gen Z, we're super aware. We see climate news all the time, all around us. And I think at first that anxiety does push people to care and perhaps even act at some points. But after a certain point, it becomes overwhelming. And you see so much of climate news all around you that you become numb to it, you become desensitized to it. And in the grand scheme of things, not throwing a wrapper in the bin or watching my carbon emissions will not really help the planet because overall large corporations, governments, they're not making a collective move towards stopping climate change.
I think that climate anxiety is driving action more than burnout among Gen Z, as many young people are turning their concern into something productive, whether that is joining climate movements, making more sustainable choices, or speaking about environment policies. Gen Z has become one of the most vocal generations, I think.
According to me, climate change is actually driving more action than burnout. Because when young people feel worried about the planet, that concern often pushes them to do something. So this anxiety acts as in motivation, and like as long as individuals feel their actions can make a difference, that stress turns into a purpose rather than exhaustion.
Gen Z definitely does care about climate change, and probably more than like any generation before has, because of the time that we live in. But I don't think that caring about it necessarily turns it into action, because we're so used to seeing bad news about like floods somewhere or the glaciers melting and stuff like that, that it just feels so overwhelming and so big that our individual effort kind of seems pointless after a point.
I do feel that climate anxiety is obviously very, very important for climate change to be overthrown. It is, however, still paralyzing to people who cannot make decisions regularly. And thus, it is needed and it is harmful and it is very paradoxical.
Well, now let's take a look at what's happening around the world in climate action.
From global policies to on-ground impact, here's your weekly international climate roundup. Ritvik, have you ever noticed how cities feel noticeably hotter than nearby areas? Even when the official temperature reads the same? That's heavy. That's trapped heat, and the kind that lingers even after sunset. It's not just your imagination. It's a real phenomenon called the urban heat island effect. At its core, it comes down to how cities are built. Concrete and glass dominate urban landscapes. These materials absorb heat during the day and slowly release it at night, which is why cities often don't cool down the way surrounding rural areas do. Add to that the lack of trees and green cover, natural cooling systems, and you get environments that are designed quite literally to trap heat. And the impact is significant. Rising temperatures in cities lead to higher electricity consumption as people rely more on fans, air conditioners, and cooling systems. This puts immense pressure on power grids, especially during peak summer months. It also worsens air quality because increased energy demand often means more emissions. And then there are the health risks: heat exhaustion, dehydration, and in extreme cases, heat strokes. Ritvik, here's the part we don't talk about enough. This heat is not experienced equally. People living in dense, low-income areas are often the most affected. These are spaces with minimal green cover, limited ventilation, and little to no access to cooling systems. For many, even something as basic as a shaded area or clean drinking water isn't easily available. So, what we're looking at is not just an environmental issue, it's a deeply social one. With rapid urbanization, more and more people are moving into cities. Buildings are rising, roads are expanding, and green spaces are shrinking. As cities grow, they are also overheating, and if we don't address this now, the problem will only intensify. But the call to action to this is that solutions don't always have to be complex. Sometimes they already exist within our traditions. India has a beautiful culture of piyau, simple public drinking water points that offer free, safe water to anybody passing by. Similarly, the Sikh tradition of Chabil, where volunteers distribute cool sweet drinks during peak summer, is a powerful example of community care in action. We can participate and support these initiatives. At the same time, we need to actively create and nurture green spaces, plant more trees, protect the ones we already have, and advocate for parks and shaded areas in our communities. Even small steps like, rooftop gardening or maintaining local greenery can make a huge difference. And finally, use energy wisely, especially when it comes to cooling. Because every degree we bring down, every tree we plant, and every drop of water we share contributes to making our cities more livable. Because cooling a city isn't just about temperature, it's about care, equity, and collective action.
So now, Gayatri, I want you to imagine something. Imagine surviving one disaster and then being forced to face another one years later. Not as an exception, but as a pattern. In Japan, a survivor of the 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami is now dealing with wildfires near his hometown. It is a stark reminder that for many people, disasters are no longer isolated events. They are recurring realities. What we are seeing globally is deeply concerning. Disasters are not just increasing frequency, they are becoming more intense and more deadly. Floods, heat waves, wildfires, storms, each event is testing the limits of how much communities can endure and recover from. And recovery itself is no longer a one-time process. Communities are being forced to adapt, rebuild, and prepare again and again. In Japan, there is an added layer to this challenge. It is the aging population. With fewer young responders and a growing number of elderly citizens who need support during emergencies, disaster response systems are under even greater strain. It is not just about the scale of disasters anymore, but also about the capacity to respond to them effectively. And this is where the idea of resilience comes into focus. For years, we've talked about adapting to climate change, building stronger systems, preparing better responses, but actually the truth is that resilience is being tested constantly, Gayatri. Because beyond a certain point, adaptation alone is not enough for the intensity of the disasters that continue to rise. The call to action for this is start by understanding your own surroundings. Know the risks specific to your area, whether it's heat waves, floods, or water shortages. Stay prepared with basic awareness and emergency readiness. Support initiatives that focus on climate resilience and sustainable infrastructure. And most importantly, recognize that reducing emissions is not some distant abstract goal. It has direct, real consequences. The less we contribute to climate change today, the less severe these disasters will be tomorrow. Because resilience shouldn't mean constantly recovering. It should mean not being pushed to the edge in the first place.
Ritvik, did you know Europe has just gone through one of its hottest years on record? And this isn't just about a slight rise in temperature. We're talking about intense, record-breaking heat waves that have pushed systems and people to their limits. Across Europe, the effects have been visible and severe. Prolonged droughts, raging wildfires, and over 1 million hectares of land burned. But what's even more alarming is the impact isn't just limited to land. Oceans are heating up too. The Arctic is losing ice at an accelerated pace, and scientists are increasingly concerned about the stability of the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or the AMOC. This is a major ocean current system that helps regulate climate across continents. If it weakens significantly, or worse, collapses, the consequences would be catastrophic, affecting weather patterns across Europe, Africa, and the Americas. What this really shows us is how deeply interconnected everything is, be it land, oceans, ice sheets, sea, even permafrost. They don't function in isolation. When one system shifts, it sets off a chain reaction with the others. A warm ocean affects the weather, melting ice affects sea levels, changing currents affect climate. And these aren't distance, these are abstract changes. When ecosystems are disrupted, economies feel it. Agriculture suffers, fisheries decline, tourism is affected, and ultimately it impacts people, our food, our livelihood, and our daily lives. This isn't just about environment anymore, it's about everything. So, the call to action to this is, one may ask, where do we begin? We begin with our choices. Use less energy where you can, whether it's switching off unused appliances or being mindful of cooling and heating. Consume more consciously. What we buy and how much we waste matters more than we think. Support climate-friendly solutions, whether through awareness, advocacy, or everyday decisions. Because awareness is important, but action, that's what creates change.
Today, we did not just look at climate as a crisis, but rather as a series of choices. Choices we see in the news, in boardrooms, in government files, and in our own kitchens.
And with every choice, we pick a direction, either walking with the planet or choosing to ignore it.
This conversation is made possible by Climate Action Live, a youth-driven platform by Madhur Singh that takes climate awareness beyond conversations and connects it to real-world action.
At its core, Climate Action Live creates space for young voices where learning, dialogue, and action all come together.
If you want to be a part of this movement, then do visit the Climate Action Live website and explore how you can contribute.
You can also check out the New Imaginations Research Center at the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication, which works with young scholars to expand stories and perspectives, helping us understand climate and society through new narratives.
So, until next week when we meet again,
Keep asking yourself, are you choosing to be Earthwise
or otherwise?